welcome you here on behalf of our 150,000 members, supporters, and participating educators around the country. Many of you are familiar with population education. For those who aren't, I will just mention that we are America's largest grassroots population organization. In this one regard, we do think big is better. And what we do is we seek to educate and advocate on behalf of policies that will make a better, safer, and less crowded world. Specifically, we do that primarily through K through 12 education, where we train about 11,000 teachers a year and reach about 3 million students across the United States. Our goal there is not to tell students what to think about population, but rather to try to get them to think about population as one of the preeminent global challenges of our time. There is a smaller group that we do try to tell what to think, and those are the women and men who serve in Congress, and we do our best to get them to do what we want them to do with intermittent success, and we do that through lobbying and advocacy on behalf of the notion that population is one of the great challenges of our era, and the best way to meet it is through universal awareness and access to affordable voluntary contraception coupled with the full empowerment of women. If it sounds like I've said that phrase a few times before, I have, because it is at the core of who we are and what we believe. We were founded back in 1968 under the name Zero Population Growth. We changed our name 11 years ago, partly because the old name seemed to scare the children a little bit. But we still are proud of our legacy there and happily answer to that name. You know, the world is obviously changing. I have some very disturbing news for all of you. We are not getting any younger. I know of an orthopedic surgeon who commented that every morning when he fires up his brand new Porsche, he thanks God for men of a certain age who persist in playing basketball. So the fact that we as individuals are not getting younger is a fact of life, but here in the United States, it's also a fact of demographic life for us as a nation. Around the time of our founding in 1968 or thereabouts, the median age of an American was 28. Today, it's about 37. That's a pretty remarkable change in a matter of a little over 4 decades. And it's certainly a change that is significant and bears examination. We think it offers many opportunities and needs to be viewed as an opportunity rather than as a crisis. If this aging is indeed a crisis, it's the first good crisis we've ever had, and about time, I'd say. But I think the change in terms of America getting older needs to be looked at in the context of a lot of other changes. You know, 1968, the year of our founding, was also the year that Texas Instruments came out with its first programmable calculator. Some of you may have grandparents who told you about these devices. And I can't even calculate the difference between those devices in the hands of individuals and the computing capability that is available at extraordinary low cost to those of us who are fortunate enough to be able to access it today. Several years ago, my wife gave me a present of a Kindle device, and it occurred to me a few weeks after I got it and was looking at different books on there and having a great time, that I was in possession of a library that was greater in scope than the library of the wealthiest human on earth just a generation or two earlier. And what did it cost? $99? It's extraordinary, these changes. So I think we should look at the issue of population growth and our economy within the broader context of these extraordinary changes that are happening in our nation. I actually live, when I'm home, in a small town in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, named Percy. Nobody's ever heard of it, and we kind of like it that way, frankly. When I moved there, and that was in 1972, the chief enterprise in town was textiles. We had a couple of pants factories. And if you went into one of these, you want to be careful not to stand too close to one of the sewing machines, because the operators who were working at piece rate would sew you right into the trousers if you did, because they just worked like crazy to make a living. Today, those textile plants are long gone. First they went south, then they went out of the country. But today, the leading employer in this small town is still textiles. But now it's a company that makes medical and surgical textiles, very sophisticated textiles that are used in various surgeries and other medical applications, much higher value added. So things change, and that change can be very hard for people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the opportunities are going away. In this county where I live, it was one of the early Levittowns in the southern part of our county. There are several of them around the country, and the statistics about that whole demographic development that was spawned by the baby boomers and the post-war era are extraordinary. During its heyday, they were completing a house in Levittown every 16 minutes. There were over 17,000 homes built in the space of several years in Levittown. The most recent large development in Bucks County, which is about a tenth the size of Levittown, is called Ann's Choice. It's a retirement community. And I venture to say that some of the residents of Ann's Choice once lived in Levittown. So there continue to be these opportunities. I like to think that 60 is the new 30. Some days it feels like the old 70. But I think that there are so many opportunities inherent in this transformation. And one of the things we can look toward is sort of what's happening in the wider world. You know, one of the oldest countries on earth in terms of median age is Germany. It's right there at the top. The average median age in Germany is about 45. Just about the youngest country on earth in terms of median age is the African nation of Niger, where the average person is 15. Now, you don't need to be an economist to answer the question, where do people have a better life, in Germany or in Niger? Niger ranks just about dead last on every human development index in the world. So the question becomes, and I think it's the question for today, or at least an important one, is how can a nation such as the United States have a healthy economy in an era where our population growth is slowing and where we may see, in fact, I hope we will see, population stabilization as we move forward. You know, what is a healthy economy? And I think there's a lot of changing thought about that too, and we'll be getting into some of that today. How do you define health in an economy? Do you define it only in terms of GDP and bottom line, or do you look at what we're doing to natural capital? Do you look at the whole issue of sustainability? And that's one of those words that can be helpful, but it also tends to sometimes get used to, sometimes everything is being marketed as being sustainable, but I think it bears close examination. How can we be productive in the ways that really matter in terms of people having a decent, healthy life? You know, Joel Cohen, the demographer and professor, really said it better than I ever could when it comes to the issue we work on. He said the issue with population isn't, a close paraphrase, isn't just numbers, although we need to know the numbers so that we can talk intelligently and not make fools of ourselves. It's really about the quality of life. It's what will make people be able to live and work and die with a sense that their lives have some meaning and some purpose. And in this world of ours, it does take money to do that. So how can we be productive? How can we overcome some of these challenges and see this not as a crisis, but as an opportunity, and to make the best of it? With that in mind, we will proceed with the people who actually know a great deal. I think every other speaker today has a doctorate except me, and I commend them for their diligence and mourn my lack thereof.